What happens when a black woman walks into her new job and gets treated like an intruder? What if the clerk calls security and she's the prosecutor? And when the truth comes out, will the system protect her or push back harder? Stay with us to watch how one woman turns humiliation into reform. If you've ever been underestimated, this story is for you. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that speak truth. The courthouse pulsed with its usual rhythm, shuffling papers, clicking pens, the low hum of overlapping voices. Judges in dark robes moved swiftly through corridors, clerks darted in and out of offices, and nervous defendants clung to hope or fear like jackets they couldn't take off. The marble floors gleamed, reflecting the fluorescent lights above and the weight of justice, real or imagined, below. Danielle Knox stepped through the front entrance with purpose. Her black power suit hugged her frame just enough to signal authority, and her heels clicked sharply against the polished tile. In her right hand, a leather briefcase, on her wrist, a vintage gold watch that had belonged to her mother. The morning air still clung to her skin, but inside she was ice, composed, ready. This was her first day as city prosecutor, but the stillness in her expression began to crack the moment she reached the check-in desk. Behind the counter sat Miriam Booth, silver hair pulled into a bun too tight to be kind, fingers hovering above a keyboard as if poised to strike. Her eyes narrowed as Danielle approached, scanning her like a misplaced item in the wrong aisle. "This area's off limits to the public," Miriam said, not a question, not a greeting, a dismissal. Danielle blinked once. "I'm not the public," she replied, voice calm, almost warm. She slid a government-issued badge across the desk. Danielle Knox, first day. Miriam didn't even pick up the ID, just stared at it, then at Danielle. Her lips thinned. "Security," she called over her shoulder, her voice slicing through the lobby. "We've got a situation." Danielle heard the hush behind her, conversations dying mid-sentence, footsteps pausing. The word situation echoed in the sudden stillness like a gavel dropped too soon. The security officer was tall, stone-faced, already reaching for the radio clipped to his belt. "I'm going to need you to step back, ma'am," he said. Danielle adjusted her briefcase, straightened her back. "I am the new city prosecutor," she said evenly. "If you'd like to remove me from this building, I suggest you call the district attorney yourself." The silence that followed wasn't quiet, it was electric, and it was only just beginning. Danielle had learned long ago how to walk into a room before anyone could decide if she belonged in it. There was a rhythm to it, back straight, steps deliberate, eyes scanning but never lingering. Power wasn't just in what you said. It was in how little you needed to explain yourself. And today, despite the morning's humiliation, she refused to let them strip that from her. She stood just beyond the security checkpoint now, heartbeat steady. Let them whisper. Let them watch. She hadn't come here to be liked. She'd come to make change, and change never showed up quietly. She adjusted the strap on her briefcase and walked toward the elevators, the hum of courthouse life slowly resuming behind her. Her posture never faltered, even as the sting of what had just happened lingered beneath her collarbones like heat after a slap. This wasn't new, not to her. Before Charlotte, she'd spent 6 years as an assistant district attorney in Newark. Before that, law school in D.C., where she'd also grown up. She knew what it meant to speak precisely and carry proof in triplicate, to smile without softening, to work twice as hard for half the assumption of competence. This was supposed to be a step forward, a new position in a new city, where the administration promised progressive reform and diversity in leadership. But the moment she walked through those doors, every promise had cracked like old paint. Still, she kept walking. On her wrist, her mother's gold watch glinted under the courthouse lights. It was slightly too loose now, the strap worn at the edges, But Danielle never had it resized. Some things were meant to stay exactly as they were, like the words her mother had told her the day she'd passed the bar. You don't need to shout to be heard, baby. Just stand in the right room. Today, she was in that room. And no one, not a bitter clerk, not a hesitant guard, not even the whispers crawling down the hallway would convince her otherwise. The first time Danielle stepped into a courthouse, she left in tears, but not her own. She was 12. Her mother had taken the afternoon off from the hospital, still in her pale blue scrubs and white sneakers, to accompany Danielle to a school event for Civic Education Week. They were supposed to tour the courthouse, sit in on a hearing, maybe even meet a judge. Danielle had been buzzing with excitement the whole morning. She remembered practicing how she'd introduce herself. My name is Danielle Knox, and I want to be a lawyer. They never made it past the lobby. A uniformed deputy stopped them at the security line. His eyes darted to her mother's attire, scrubs wrinkled from a 14-hour shift, badge still clipped to her chest. His tone had been firm, but not loud. Polite, even in that sharp, professional way people use when they're telling you you don't belong. This isn't an appropriate outfit for a courtroom, ma'am. Danielle's mother had apologized, explained, said they weren't attending court, just a tour for students. The deputy nodded sympathetically, then told her she would still need to wait outside. Danielle remembered looking up at her mother, confused. But why? Her mother's face stayed calm, just like Danielle would later learn to do. She gave Danielle a soft smile, kissed her forehead, and told her to go ahead with the class. Danielle didn't. She left with her. They sat in the car, parked half a block away. Her mother didn't say a word for a long time. When she finally did, her voice cracked. I work all day trying to save lives, and still, it's never enough. Danielle never forgot the sound of that silence. That was the day she decided. Not just to become a lawyer, but a prosecutor. Not the kind who threw weight around, but the kind who knew the system too well to be fooled by its polite cruelty. The kind who walked straight into the rooms her mother had been turned away from and made damn sure no one else had to leave through the side door. That was the day I swore no one would ever make me feel like I didn't belong again. Danielle set her briefcase down on the counter with a deliberate thud. Not enough to be aggressive, just enough to make the room blink. I suggest you call the district attorney, she said, voice crisp, every syllable sharpened by control. And while you're at it, you might want to turn on the cameras for your own protection. Miriam Booth stiffened, lips tightening like a noose. Are you threatening me, ma'am? I'm stating a fact, Danielle replied evenly. If you're going to falsely accuse someone of trespassing, you'd better document it properly. The security guard shifted uncomfortably, his fingers now hovering between his radio and a clipboard. His eyes flicked toward Miriam, waiting for a cue. Miriam leaned forward, ignoring the ID still resting between them. You're raising your voice, she said pointedly. Danielle hadn't moved an inch. Her voice remained low, calm, professional, and you're raising a false alarm. From the side desk, a younger man, thin, anxious, tapping nervously at his keyboard, cleared his throat. Miss Booth," he said cautiously. Maybe I should just check the registry." Miriam turned to glare at him, but not before Danielle caught the flicker of doubt in her eyes. Too late. The young man, Ethan Ramirez, she would later learn, pulled up the employee log, fingers flying over keys. A long pause, then he looked up. She's actually the new city prosecutor." Silence collapsed around them like a blown fuse. The officer took a half step back. Miriam's mouth parted slightly, the blood draining from her face. Her gaze darted from Danielle to the screen, to the security guard, then back. Danielle straightened, picked up her ID and returned it to her wallet. Then, slowly, she met Miriam's eyes. "Let's not call this a misunderstanding," she said. Her tone was still composed, but there was steel underneath. "Let's call it what it is, bias." A beat. Then two. Danielle stepped forward, moving past the guard without a glance, without hesitation, and no one stopped her. She didn't need to shout. She never had. But this time the whole room heard her anyway. The atmosphere in the courthouse didn't return to normal. It rearranged itself. Danielle walked the final stretch toward the elevators in silence, her heels the only sound echoing across the marble. The people who had watched the scene unfold, clerks, attorneys, bailiffs, had gone quiet. Conversations that had once buzzed now fell flat mid-sentence as she passed. Some averted their eyes. Others met her gaze, then quickly looked away, like children caught watching something they weren't supposed to see. No one spoke to her, but no one dared stop her again either. She reached the elevator and pressed the button with precise calm. Behind her, the lobby was no longer humming. It was holding its breath. That evening, as the sky turned lavender over the Charlotte skyline, Danielle sat in her apartment, dinner untouched beside her. Her phone buzzed once, unknown number. She considered letting it ring, then answered. "Danielle Knox." A nervous voice came through, brittle but sincere. "Miss Knox, this is Ethan Ramirez. I'm the clerk from earlier." He exhaled, shaky. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry." Danielle said nothing. "I saw what was happening," he continued. "I knew it wasn't right, but I froze. I should have spoken up." His voice cracked slightly on the last word. "I'm sorry." Danielle leaned back in her chair, her eyes on the ceiling. "You weren't the only one who stayed silent," she said quietly. "But you were the first to call." She let that sit. Then, "Next time, don't freeze." A pause. "Someone else will need you to stand up." Ethan didn't respond right away. When he did, his voice was steadier. "I understand." Danielle ended the call with a quiet "good night," then placed the phone face down beside her. Outside, the city buzzed on. But inside her chest, something had shifted, not a win, not yet, but momentum. The next morning, the air inside the courthouse felt heavier but different. There was no confrontation, no scene, just a subtle shift, the kind you feel more than see. When Danielle entered the lobby, the whispers didn't return. People looked, yes, they always would. But now, there was something else tucked behind the glances, awareness. Not yet respect, maybe not even acceptance, but recognition. She existed now in their eyes, no longer invisible or ignored. She walked through the corridor, nodding once at the security officer, the same one from yesterday. He nodded back, just barely. Her office door was closed when the knock came, 3 soft raps. She had been reviewing files, but she looked up instantly. "Come in," she said. The door opened slowly, revealing a small group of courthouse staff, no more than 6, standing uncertainly in the doorway. Clerks, a couple of junior paralegals, and in the middle, a young black woman with a tight bun and tired eyes. "I'm Denise," the woman said. "We just wanted to talk to you." Danielle folded her hands calmly. "Go ahead." Denise hesitated, then stepped forward. "Miriam's been awful to a lot of us for years, but no one says anything. Everyone just lets it be." Another voice spoke, a young man in a gray sweater. "She's made 3 people quit this year alone. One had a panic attack in the stairwell." Danielle stayed quiet, letting them speak. She knew what this was, not a complaint, a confession. Denise continued, voice softer now. "But yesterday, you made them look. You didn't let it slide. And we needed to say thank you." Danielle looked at the group, all young, all weary, all used to being overlooked. "None of you should have had to wait for someone to step in," she said gently. The silence in the room wasn't shame. It was shared history. She stood, walked to her door, and opened it fully. "If you're ready to change the system," she said, her voice low but certain, "start here." They exchanged glances, nervous, hopeful, then stepped inside one by one. Not a protest, not yet a movement, but something had begun. The summons came before noon. A short knock at Danielle's door, followed by a messenger with a clipped message. District Attorney Blake would like to see you. Now. She followed the long hallway to the top floor, heels muted by the carpet, but her presence no less sharp. The receptionist waved her through. Inside, District Attorney Terrence Blake stood by the window, hands in his pockets, staring out at the city like he was measuring it. He didn't offer pleasantries. "You've made quite the entrance," he said without turning. Danielle didn't flinch. "I wasn't aiming for one." He finally turned, studied her face for a moment, not hostile but cautious, measuring. "What do you want, Miss Knox?" She didn't hesitate. "Not revenge," she said. "Reform." Blake arched an eyebrow. "Define it." Danielle stepped forward, placing a single sheet of paper on his desk. Typed. Bullet pointed. Mandatory anti-bias training for all courthouse staff, clerks, assistants, deputies, even judges. Not a webinar, not a checkbox. Real sessions. Real accountability. He read in silence, jaw tense. When he looked up, his voice was lower. "You understand what this will stir up?" "I do. Some of them will fight it, some will go to the press, some will blame you for making trouble." Danielle met his gaze without blinking. "They'll hate you for it," he said, not cruelly, just a fact. Her reply came without pause. "I've been hated before." A beat passed between them, then another. Finally, Blake nodded once. "I'll back you. It won't be pretty, but if you're in." "I'm in," Danielle said. She didn't smile, neither did he. But something shifted in the space between them, a crack in the foundation, not from collapse, but the beginning of change. The courthouse never truly went quiet, but Danielle's office was the closest thing to stillness she'd felt all day. Outside her window, Charlotte buzzed with late afternoon life, traffic pulsing through downtown, voices rising faintly from the plaza below. Inside, her office was dim except for the slant of amber sunlight warming her desk, casting a long shadow across the placard that bore her name. City Prosecutor Danielle Knox. She stared at it for a long time. It still didn't feel real, not because she doubted she'd earned it, but because of how fiercely some had tried to deny it. One day on the job and she'd already been questioned, humiliated, nearly removed, not for what she'd done, but for who they assumed she couldn't be. She reached for her wrist and slowly unclasped her mother's gold watch. The leather was worn, the face slightly scratched, but it still ticked, still counted the seconds like it always had. From her first mock trial to the moment she stood her ground in that lobby, she placed it gently next to the nameplate, side by side. Legacy and presence, memory and proof. A soft knock broke the stillness. She didn't brace this time. "Come in," she called. The door creaked open and Ethan Ramirez stepped inside, eyes bright behind nervous glasses. He held a manila folder in one hand. I spoke to HR," he began. "And to Blake." Danielle raised an eyebrow. "I volunteered to help lead the anti-bias training rollout, not just attend it, help build it." Her lips curved barely, a small, restrained smile that carried more weight than applause. "Good," she said. "The fight is just beginning." He nodded once, then turned to leave. As he pulled the door closed behind him, Danielle's voice stopped him. "Ethan," he turned. "Next time you see someone being erased," she said, voice quiet but firm, "don't wait for permission to step in." His smile was small but real. "I won't." The door clicked shut. Danielle looked back at the desk, her name, her title, her mother's watch. The world hadn't changed, but it had started, and so had she.